Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Peak Property Performance. Today's episode is operating a modern commercial real estate campus through data, infrastructure, and visibility. Before I get into introducing our guest, Chad Stafford, I want to encourage everybody to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast. This is how we're getting the word out about changing this industry. If you know somebody that would be a great guest on the show, please tell them to reach out to me or Drew via LinkedIn or email, or hit the Peak Property Performance website and just put in an application there. That's how we're getting such great guests to be on the show. So, Chad, say hello to everybody before I read your introduction.
Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here.
Chad Stafford is the president of Occidental Management. He and his team oversee a diverse portfolio of commercial real estate, including ownership of Esperia in Overland Park, Kansas, which I know firsthand is one of the largest mixed-use corporate campuses in the country. So what makes this conversation particularly interesting is that operating a campus at that scale requires far more than traditional property management. It demands visibility into operations, infrastructure, utilities, tenant experience, and long-term asset performance, as well as, I'm sure, investor management and some other nightmares we won't touch today. How's that, Chad? Today, we'll discuss how owners are using data, digital infrastructure, and operational intelligence to make better decisions, modernize aging assets, and create more value across their portfolios. Again, Chad, welcome to the show. I'm glad we're finally getting to make this happen.
I know it's been a while. Thanks for being patient with me, Bill. We've had quite a bit of hurdles and pitfalls to get through to get here. So I appreciate you hanging with me. Glad to be on.
Well, I know the market has brought challenges, but it's been an interesting ride there on campus for a while, given what the Royals were doing and everything like that. That's no secret, but I'm glad to see you survived all that and you're living to fight another, I would say day, but this is going to be a decade. So
I tell our employees, we like basically giving them updates. We have quarterly team meetings and things like that, talk about what's happening where and when throughout the portfolio. And I said, what a long 40 years the last 5 years has been. Because it just feels like, ever since, we, in our infinite wisdom, we purchased the former Sprint headquarters campus in July 9th of 2019. And who knew that 7 months later, you would be in a much different environment than what we had acquired the asset in. So it's been a challenge for sure.
yeah, I didn't make this part of the topic, but you're welcome to go there if you want. It turned into a ghost town for a couple of years, didn't it?
It did. Yeah, from probably really since the lockdown. March, April of 2020 through the end of 21. It was eerie to be on campus and just walking through a place that right before that had an average daily attendance of almost 11,500 people every day. It was a small city. It is a small city, but it was a ghost town.
Well, the 11,000 was when it wasn't even full. So
That's right.
for
Yeah.
our audience, there's 4 million square feet, right? There's 15 parking decks roughly. There's a plant. So how big is the campus? How many buildings are there?
Sure. It's 200 acres and we have 17 office buildings. The average square footage is a little over 200,000 feet. We have 14 parking decks with about 1,000 parking spaces per garage. We have our own power plant. We have our own warehouse. We have a 70,000 foot fitness center that's, as I'm told, is the second largest corporate fitness center in America. Next, I think Microsoft's is larger, but or maybe it's Apple. One of the tech companies has a bigger one. But 70,000 feet on 3 stories with an elevated indoor track, basketball, pickleball, yoga, you name it. The campus it was built for a single user, obviously Sprint Corp, but it's just highly amenitized. And that's what we saw, not only from the asset basis, was this is something for everybody: indoor, outdoor, other places to work around campus, little nodes, cafeterias, little areas that you can gather as a team, not in your office. If you wanted to go outside your office, walking trails. It had ponds. And then the thing that we really liked about it was not only that asset, but then it came with about 40 acres, actually 47 acres of developable land that is in the best demographic hard corner in Kansas City at 119th and Knoll. Never been developed because the intent was never to develop it. And we looked at it and said, well, not only can we, buy an asset that has good, a good mix of tenants. And when we bought it, there were only 15 tenants, including Sprint. Today we have over 70, but we saw that one, the location, the structured parking, which is a big deal, the indoor, outdoor spaces, conference center space on site, and then the development. We said, if we can get a hold of it, this will be, a great long-term asset. Notwithstanding, no one could see that COVID was around the corner, but yeah, it's 3.8 million feet. It's a little city, and it takes a great team to work it. We probably have, and OpticWise obviously is integral to that as one of our in-place vendors that's there every day, all day. There's 75 people every day on that thing helping our tenants and making sure they have the best experience possible.
It is a beautiful little city in and of itself there in Overland Park. I selfishly will say that that is one of the nicest gyms I ever get to visit. So when I do a campus visit there, I love it. I didn't know it was the second largest corporate, but it feels bigger than my home gym in Denver. Like it's just nicer. And it's always full. So a lot of people use it. Let's start out by talking about building operational visibility across a massive campus. So Esperia is very different than operating a typical office building. I mean, you have other office buildings in your portfolio, but at the scale of Esperia, where does operational visibility become the most important?
It actually is one of the best selling points that we created since acquiring the campus. The first thing we did is we knew that to have a campus, if you think about it, Troy Marquis, our CFO, his favorite thing is this is a 4 million foot skyscraper flipped on its side, because there is a lot of interconnectivity. And with that, and you have all this open spaces and people need to do different things with conference centers and technology and all this stuff. The first thing we did was, when we got the team in place, we hired what I call the mayor of Esperia. We went out and found a customer tenant concierge that can help them with anything they want. When previous to us owning it, it was, this was Sprint campus, world headquarters. And yeah, there were other tenants on there, but they were basically like subleases. And it was like Sprint at some point would maybe take the space back because they were going to, continue to grow or something. Then, and they did the merger with T-Mobile. We ended up with one large big tenant that's its own subset of demands and customer service requirements, which is all good. But then we said, okay, now I don't think they realized what they had. And maybe they didn't utilize it. We certainly saw that if you can communicate to the market and to the existing tenants all of the things that we can do, I don't think any of them knew that the technology underneath that campus services the entire West Coast. I mean, it's an 8-foot tube stuffed full of fiber optics, and you know this better than anyone, Bill. The services that you can provide tenants, when I do a leasing tour now, and Kathy Brown is our mayor, and she helps all the tenants with everything they want to do, from events to 5Ks to leasing conference space or renting conference space or using technology. When I deal with tenants, and we're talking about all the things in campus, the best thing is, how would you like it if you are a 40, 50,000 square foot user, but we can, with your own firewall, set you up so your employees can work anywhere on campus like they're sitting at their desk. They can print, it's secure, they can be outside, they can be at the town center plaza, having a cup of coffee at the roastery, anything like that, just like they were there. And that gives them, it's a change of pace, a change of location, and it gives your employees a reason why they want to be here. Because the conveniences, I don't want to say a live, work, play, because we don't have apartments there yet, they're coming, but a versatile workplace that allows employees to kind of venture and change their scenery whenever they want, but still have the technological advances. I mean, that's the amazing part. And people are just like, wait, what? So if I'm up at the north end of campus and I want to go down to the fitness center and I'm gonna go walk around the track and I can do everything like I'm at my desk. Yeah, absolutely. We didn't even know about it when we bought it until we got involved with it. And you guys obviously helped us with this. Do you realize all the capabilities you have that you can do that no one else can do? And we created a whole separate business out of it. Aside from just renting a standard landlord, I'm going to rent you square feet and then you can call AT&T. Now we already have the data centers there and the technology that we can do anything you want. And it's really a game changer in commercial real estate when you have that capability.
And for clarification to the audience, your tenants employees can wander around the entire campus and be behind your tenant's firewall and your tenant's directory services under your tenant identity management, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, regardless of where they are physically. So you challenged with us to do that when you first engaged. And we said, yeah, we do it all the time. And then within 3 months, you're like, yeah, that's what we wanted. So you had the vision and we were delighted to do it with you. But you hinted at something there a second ago, and it was the digital infrastructure. So what I've enjoyed working the most with Occidental over the years, with both you and Troy in leadership, is that you treat digital infrastructure like it's real infrastructure. Like you made significant investments in the campus because, to your credit, that digital infrastructure, there was fiber there, but nothing else. There was nothing on the ends of it when Sprint and they did their merger. They took everything. So there was bones, but no joints and no brain. If you're looking for an analogy in the medical world, right? You had to pay for the joints and the brain to be put in and then to operate it as well. But many owners think about roads and roofs and parking lots and mechanical as infrastructure. How has your thinking evolved around digital infrastructure, not just in the beginning, but where you are now and where you're going?
Yeah, and I will say, in the beginning it was kind of like light bulb on. This is amazing. We didn't know this. We didn't find this out during due diligence. We knew about the fiber lines, obviously, and there's a lot of technology. We had no idea the capability of it while we were doing due diligence. Once we got a hold of it and started working with you guys, and we started listening to tenants' wants and needs and the employees, and obviously at that point it's all about talent retention and recruitment. Well, if you have the best technology and you can tell your employees or future employees, you can do all this stuff here at our office, and in addition to all the other amenities. And that is a big win from a human resources and talent standpoint. From our side, it was kind of like, my gosh, what's the limit? Where can we take this? And when you have that interconnectivity all over campus, and DoD level security encryption on things, and you can provide that as this is our standard. And you've got companies that deal with not just a T-Mobile, which is obviously has some very sensitive things, but there's a reason Fiserv is creating a regional HQ here. There's a reason Hill's Pets Nutrition moved their entire headquarters to campus. And one is about the environment and all that stuff. And that's critically important. But the ability to have the technology and the offerings that we've got from that perspective, from an employee standpoint, that just sets it completely apart. And you're right. I mean, we had to install a new building automation system that tracks 51,000 data points at a given time. I mean, that thing is wired to the point where we know before a VAV box is going to shoot craps in a tenant space, it will sound the alarm, say, hey, this fan's not cooling, or it's not balanced correctly. You're going to have a problem, and we can get on top of it. So ultimately, the great thing we learned about the technology, and as you just mentioned, putting the brains in it and some of the joints, is that it tells us before we have a real problem, or maybe a more expensive problem, how to maintain and be a little bit more on the preventative maintenance side of things, so that we don't have a larger issue with a tenant. And ultimately, that satisfaction ends up being why we've been able to attract the kind of tenancy we've got.
Well, we not only operate your digital infrastructure for you as your partner, but we collect all that data from all the operating technology platforms. And I can tell you, because we monitor all of those points, there's a lot more than 54,000. There's 54,000 points just in the BMS. Then you add everything else to it. And there's a lot more than that, because I can see exactly how many are there and whether it's red light or green light. And when it's a red light, it becomes an issue, of course. So how do you prioritize digital infrastructure investments going forward? Do you look at the value of the data? Do you just look at the value that the infrastructure is going to provide on services? Because I do know that the infrastructure investments you've made are paying for themselves based upon what tenants are paying you for them. So how do you evaluate that going forward?
So I think one is, as more and more tenants get used to that kind of environment, because a lot of times you'll have a tenant come in, they're used to being in a single building, right? And you've done this a million places too, where they're like, okay, where's your DMARC room? Okay, I'm going to pull this guy in and they're going to hook us up and boom, boom, boom. And they just need access. And we're like, no, 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 that's not how this works. You have a point here and a point here and a point here. They can come in here. They have to get on our raceway. We have to have contracts signed with them to provide this. And by the way, everybody's already on campus, so it's not like we're reinventing the wheel with any of these. But just the switch from a tenant's perspective of, I'm used to having to do this all on my own and bring in my own infrastructure, to it's already there. All I'm doing is renting it, just like I would normal real estate. but then the scalable capabilities of it is what then really is exciting. And that's where I think looking forward, not only is it, yes, it's a great infrastructure service that our tenants enjoy and utilize. And I think more and more, it used to be kind of a sell job, when we first
Hmm.
were doing this with you guys, and kind of have to explain how it works and why. And people are like, I don't know. And, IT guys can be fairly territorial sometimes. To now, it's we've got enough bandwidth with users and people that rely on that backbone for so much of their work on campus that it's not much of a sell at all, really. It's just like, here we provide all this stuff, and here's the guys that hook it up, and here's where you got to go, and it's almost a seamless deal. The fact that we can get people fired up if someone came to me tomorrow and said, I gotta have this space, and I'm critical infrastructure, I got to be up and running in 7 days between with you guys on board, we can do it, and that's rare. Because a lot of people, you're talking about, time delays and 90 days to get in and all that. And we're like, we can have you fired up in 7 days. And that speed, especially in today's economy, if you can provide the space, provide the infrastructure, we got furniture all over the place. If we need, like, we can literally, somebody could come to me and say, I need space for 100 people, in a week. And I'm one of the few places that I could actually do that.
Well, you keep talking about the tenant, which I love because you're an owner or operator, but I'm going to selfishly switch it back to the owner. And you, Occidental, took ownership of the digital infrastructure and made the stance that you're not going to let tenants disrupt that. So you don't have riser crowding. You don't have vendors pulling cable all over your facility. So you own the core infrastructure and your tenants rent it from you, right? So that's a significant income, right? To pay for that
Yeah.
asset right there. And the tenant benefits from instant service. And if a tenant, we've had this happen several times, they grow and they grow and they grow, they need to move across campus. The cross campus move is as quick as changing a cross connect. There's no cable pulling needed. They might not even have to move their equipment a lot of times. Depends on where they're hosting it, whether it's on one of the floor IDFs or one of the data centers. But even if it was a 200,000 square foot building all by itself, the concept, and a lot of the times, maybe you can help owners understand this. They think that the connectivity is the tenant's problem, but if they own the infrastructure, not only does it become your problem, but it becomes your income. And the tenant gets a quicker, more reliable, because for instance, the internet services available at Esperia are triple redundant and power backed up. So they work even when the power's out, but you could have two carriers fail and you wouldn't even notice as a customer. In a 200,000 foot building, maybe you don't need three, but we'd advocate for two. So if you remove all the failure points, then tenants say, well, wait a second, I'd have to pay 5 times as much to have two carriers as I can get one circuit from you. Exactly. So you're monetizing your digital infrastructure in a way that there's probably less than 100 buildings in the country doing, 100 properties in the country. I mean, you have a quarter of those buildings already, but 100 properties, and yours is a big campus. So I wanted to make the point to the audience that the fiber and the copper between the MPOE, wherever that is on campus, because there's several, and the tenant suite is owned by the property. It is not owned by the tenant, right? But the tenant connectivity is private and secure. That is the tenant's data. But when you have a building management system, that is your data. And you actually have the data because I've seen it and we collect it. You don't leave it inside of a Schneider system. You get the data if and when you want it. And any other system. I mean, it could be access controls or the lock systems or anything like that. We collect data from all those systems.
And what's interesting, especially, and I don't want to harp on COVID, but one of the things that we get a lot of questions about from both tenants and our outside partners, our investors and our capital partners from the lending basis is, well, tell us about the utilization. Okay. I don't have somebody with a clicker standing outside of every door looking at who comes in and what original. Our technology tells us what are our organic card swipes in what buildings, when, and by whom, and we can write down to who it was and what company, what tenant do they work for. And I then can tell people, here's what our space utilization is at this moment in time because we have the data to be able to back that up.
But I'll reiterate the data is not just from the access control card swipes. We can collect that same occupancy or even density data through lighting control systems, through Wi-Fi systems, and it's all anonymized data. We're not collecting any information on the users, but we can tell there's bodies there to validate the card swipes. So it's not only are you knowing somebody came in through the door, you can tell where they are, where the bodies are. So space utilization becomes primo.
And I would tell you, we're about, I mean, having tracked this now for a number of years, I mean, we're about at 82% utilization on campus, which is, and the Midwest is generally a little bit higher than the coast, or at least it has been. You know, I think you look at San Francisco, still probably in the high 50s, maybe low 60s. And I just think that when you have the kind of the spaces we've got, the amenities we have, the indoor, outdoor, the ability to go to multiple places to get food and work out and get, you know, if you need a break or whatever, that has allowed companies to, and I think most companies have wanted to do this, is to get people back in, not only for culture, for training, you know, for you know, retention, recruitment, all those things. I think that these types of campuses, there's not many obviously across the country, but these types of environments have allowed companies like that to really gain a leg up coming out of a very hotly contested talent and recruiting time frame.
Well, you're right. There's not that many campuses, but there are a fair amount of properties that do operate with that premise. Yeah, I keep pulling up 200. You don't have to be 200. We have clients with a 100,000 square foot building that operated on the same premise of you. And relative, they earn the same percentage return on their digital infrastructure and their data investments. And they treat data as an asset. They don't treat it as something that's just there,
Yep.
like protect the
And
tenant.
yeah, and it's interesting because it's not like, I mean, we have this discussion and we've been doing, you know, refinancing efforts, and it's not just another line item on other income. What's that, late fees? No, I mean, this is a separate business unit, as we call it. I mean, this is our technology infrastructure, and how do you monetize that in a way that one benefits certainly the tenants from a cost perspective and a time perspective, but also is a enhancement to our investment that we've made in the real estate.
Well, I know I saw the case study about what the BMS has saved you in utilities. That's widely published. The listeners can go look that up. But if you add to that the revenue you get from all these technology services that tenants choose to buy, they opt in for this, and that is a very large revenue line item that you didn't anticipate when you bought it. So it's been a beautiful maturation of service offerings.
It just continues to grow because, you know, we just literally just, I have a quarterly tenant meeting where we invite all the tenants across campus once a quarter come, and we give an update about what's coming, you know, there, we talk about, hey, we're going to be doing fire drills and tornado drills on these days and these days. And we generally talk about security, and we talk about make sure this and that. And then I give an update from the ownership side. And then I'm usually like, hey, tell me, you know, what are we missing? What's not on campus that you want to have on? What events can we add? All that stuff. And technology continues, even as good as ours are, is continues to be like, hey, is there a way we can do this? Can we automate this? Is there a way to automate? So the tenants are now starting to drive the conversation as well about how we work with our vendors like OpticWise to then increase you know, what we can provide on campus to them. So it's kind of cool to hear that kind of feedback.
Yeah, and we love it too because we don't want to tell them what they want. We'd rather they tell us, and then we just serviced it. So Esperia wasn't built yesterday. It was like 25 years ago. The core was built, correct?
Yeah, the first building was started in 99,
Okay.
and it was complete by 2003, early 2003, the whole campus
That's a
was.
fast build. So what have
Yeah.
you learned what have you learned about modernizing a large legacy asset without disrupting operations and tenants?
You better make sure all the parties are at the table. Because there's a lot of moving pieces. You've got underground infrastructure that things cross over and under. You've got easements. You've got, you know, hardscape buildings. You've got, so when you want to go and start moving things, and as developers, we like to think about how do we optimize an asset from either a square footage basis, or how can we add this or that. When you have an asset of this size, you have to look below, above, around the corner, and make sure that you've got the right people at the table, because the last thing you want to do is go and put a backhoe in the ground thinking you're going to put a cool coffee kiosk somewhere on campus, and you pull up a 8-foot wide conduit line stuffed full of fiber. And you got to have all that stuff nailed. And it is tricky. And the other piece about that is when you start to operate a campus like this, you got to realize, and I think most people that really were interested in trying to buy the campus, aside from us, is we always felt like it needed to be kept as one campus. A lot of other interested buyers were like, oh, what if we can break off these 3 buildings and sell those, and maybe we'll keep these, and, you know, we can parcel this up. It would be a nightmare. right? Because we have our own power plant, we have our own substation, we have all the redundancy. It's like a raceway through all those, and
Yeah, there's that loop road around it without like the steam runs through there, you know?
it's exactly right. And so you got to realize, this kind of asset it's a big institutional asset, and it's not easy to try and pull that thing apart.
Well, do you think operational visibility and infrastructure, not just digital infrastructure, but infrastructure performance in general, are becoming more important in investment and financing and even valuation conversations?
Oh, 100%. And because
Share a
there's
story with how, or give me an example, or like a real world aha moment or gotcha moment. Either one, I don't care. The audience loves
Okay,
the
so
it's the
here's a
experience
great
story.
one is when the campus was built, all
Mhm.
of the water sewer stacks that go in the cores up and down the building. Back then in the late 90s, it was all cast iron piping, which was supposed to last 50 years at least. What we found out is those things will corrode. Cast iron does not corrode out, it corrodes in. So eventually you just have a pinch point, and it doesn't work. And so from a investment, and how does that impact your ability to finance things? Well, now, so when I go to look at our lending and how we might refinance or how we might finance something, I've got to consider the capital input that's needed to replace. We've probably replaced the stacks in 6 or 7 of the buildings, not to use a teenager 6, 7 thing, but we do have to factor in that those capital requirements for that infrastructure for that building that then goes down into the mains is going to have to be replaced. And so that is one of the, and I won't say it's a gotcha, but it is one of those that you're like, okay, now we have to account for this on every building, that we're going to have to do this at some point. So let's get a capital strategy to do that. And that was just one of the things we found, and not hugely negative, but it's just one of the things that you got to deal with. And it is a capital constraint.
We find that capital planning as part of asset management, data and the valuation of the operational visibility is becoming extremely valuable, especially in aged buildings, shall we say. So, give another example, maybe around, I've heard you talk about roofing before. How many square feet or yards of roof do you have? And how do you plan for changing that out over the next X years? How in the world do you do that without interrupting tenants and operations and things like that?
Yeah. So the way you do that, and this is maybe one of the unintended benefits of a COVID type situation, is when you got nobody in the buildings, it's a great time to go make some improvements. Like we took advantage of that to rip out 360 dead trees that just had been towards the end of sprint. That they were focused obviously on the infrastructure and the technology, not so much how is the landscaping on campus, right? So we took advantage of some of those things to beautify the campus, get rid of some of the dead, increase the visibility, right? They used to have these mounds. We took all that down so you can actually see into the campus. And then from the roofing standpoint, I mean, I'm going to do quick math here. To
That means 27 buildings, not counting parking decks because they don't have the roofs, but that's a lot of squares.
you've got probably 30 acres of rooftops. And so you've got, and probably out of the 30, so you've probably got 8 to 10 acres of parking lot membrane that you also have to care for. And then you've got, the other 15 to 20 acres of rooftops. And, the good thing is with some of the advancements in technology with where you can do a infrared scan and find out, okay, we got a wet spot. You can see it right there. You can do the core and you can determine, is that a full roof replacement or is that not? And then it's a function of when are we going to do these in a strategic way? So when T-Mobile was renovating the inside of their long-term buildings, we knew that they were not physically occupying at least the top floor of those buildings. We said, now's the time. So we went and replaced all the roofs on that. Same example, Fiserv getting ready to do the construction. That's when you go in and say, okay, but you have to plan that out, right? The good thing is about today's leasing environment too, is most times the example I gave earlier where yes, I could fire somebody up if they came and said, I need to be operating in a week. Most of the time with a corporate campus like this, you're negotiating deals that get signed 10 months in advance on average of when the butts need to be in the seats. And so that gives you enough time to make sure, okay, did we have the capital plan in place to deal with the roof or deal with the stacks if we need to replace those.
Have you seen lenders financiers, capital partners, whatever the stack is, be more open to seeing the value that the digital infrastructure investments are returning, or are they still looking at that as ancillary income? Are they considering it core and giving you real value for what that real dollar is, or are they discounting it?
No, they definitely look at that as a like I said before, it's not an other income, like, oh yeah, it's lump it in there with late fees and all that stuff. It's a separate line item that especially when you've been able to have the setup that way. And I know you could do this, as you mentioned, in 100,000 square foot building too. But when you drive, let's call it between 50 cents and $1 a foot in additional revenue across a campus on an occupied basis, that is not small dollars. And I don't care how big your building is. That's real financeable revenue.
Well, that is NOI, not revenue. I know the numbers too. I'm not going to divulge your numbers,
Well,
but
I
that,
call it revenue because I still got to pay you. So I mean, there's a cost to it.
yeah. Well, fair enough, but that is a fraction. Put it that way. It is still impactful, right? I was trying to make the point that a lot of our audience thinks that connectivity and digital and data are the tenant's problem, whether it's office or apartments. They say the same thing. And we've been strong contenders for the last decade that no, if the building owns it and treats it like an asset, then that income is not ancillary, it's core. And it goes to financing. And that is why I asked the question, because you own the digital infrastructure, you can charge for the service. It's no longer ancillary. It is revenue minus expenses, it is NOI. That's different. It won't be discounted if and when the building is transacted. It's not been discounted when you financed it.
That's right.
So let me ask you a fun question, put on the future hat, Chad. 5 years from now, what operational capabilities do you think every major commercial real estate owner will wish they had today?
I think I certainly see in two facets. One is the portability of the technology, and you said it earlier, Bill. And this is just the world we live in. 5 years from now, I have a tenant that may be in X number of square feet in this building, and they need to go to this number of square feet in another. And if you don't have the ability to quickly and make that technology transferable and portable, it's a problem from a time. And tenants will legitimately, this is a big question we get from tenants, because anything that we've learned, if history is a lesson, is you got to be flexible and you got to be able to pivot quick. And these companies are doing it even faster. And I think with kind of the adoption of an AI model that a lot of these people are using to help them with decision making, the flexibility and the portability of the technology is huge. And the other thing I think is going to come omni important is the use of technology from a security setting. And we see that's why I brought this up about our tenant quarterly meeting. We do extensive discussions with tenants on security, the technology around it, the visibility to it, the access to it from the tenant's basis. And if you have not done that, to a point where you can allow your tenants real visibility into any of the security issues, it will be a problem in 5 years. No question about it.
Well, I like the way you publish that privacy policy. It's the ultimate privacy policy. Not only do you not monetize their data, you don't even collect it. And I know that because we taught you that and we believe in it at its core, but tenants love that. A lot of tenants have never heard that. And they realize, wait, I'm paying rent and I'm not the product. I'm not like this person is actually protecting me. They're not selling my information. Like that data is not a revenue stream. So for all purposes of this show, when we talk about data, we're talking about the data generated by the systems at Esperia, not by the people at Esperia. Very, very different. OT is not PII. I know it's a lot of acronyms, but operational technology is the only data we ever talk about here. Right. So you came from operating many other properties, owning many other properties, to buying Esperia in 2019, as you said. And then you saw the value of the data like flow through when you actually started to own, collect, and control the data from systems and devices and sensors you owned. What was the biggest aha to that whole learning process, not tenant facing, but operational facing, that you didn't know 6 years ago?
Well, we've probably spent a good amount of time talking about it, but the pivot from we should own the technology to provide as a service versus okay, the tenant needs it. I'm gonna have to get my property manager out there to let XYZ company, bring it in to demarc and da da da. Now it's just kind of well, that's just part of getting a tenant to this is a critical component of the tenant's experience, and it's a critical component of how we operate the building in the most efficient, cost effective way possible, right? Because the BMSs, all that, it really was a shift on this doesn't have to be just because that's a big campus and happens to have a bunch of technology. We're implementing this in our other properties that are 80,000 feet,
Yeah,
right? An office
I
is
know
the
because we do it with
same,
you. I get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
the same premise. And so what opened the eyes was, yeah, that was something that came along as a great, I'll call it an unknown when we bought it. Really, we knew about it, we didn't know the capabilities of it fully, but having learned that, then to be able to say, okay, now this model works, and I don't care if it's a 30,000 foot, Class A shopping center or an 80,000 foot office building. The technology that you own and can provide not only adds asset value but also customer value.
Well, before we published the book last year, the Peak Property Performance book, you got an early copy. And we're nice enough to put a quote on the back because you had seen this evolution. And then all we did was write a book about how to do it yourself. It's like you don't have to hire OpticWise to do it. You can do it yourself. And here's how you do it. Maybe you want to, maybe you don't. But either way, we strongly believe in data and digital infrastructure ownership. So we've been allies for a long time. And I appreciate you sharing all of these ideas and thoughts and being so transparent with the audience.
There's still more room to run. I mean, we just had a conversation, last week, Bill, about, now we're able to get launched on our development side and all the benefits that having owned and managed IT inside of apartment buildings from an owner's perspective, what that can do from a financial standpoint, but also from a space standpoint and a cost per square foot from a new building. So, I mean, all this stuff is I think on the cutting edge.
Well, as I shared with you, and I was on a podcast this morning talking specifically about multifamily. I was a guest on that one. We can not only reduce the build costs in a new apartment, but we can find you another $1,000 per door per year NOI, not just from revenue, but from expense reductions. And we find at least 300 on retrofits. So those are the two things that two markets we operate in. And it's nice to be able to cross chasms with you on that. At this point of the show, we shift from talking about the market and your portfolio to talking about Chad. So we call this the extra floor. I'm just gonna ask you 3 questions. I'm not gonna chime in. It's not conversational. Take as long as you want, but it's about you. And we call it the extra floor because it's fun. So what's the best piece of career or life advice you've ever received?
If you're going to hoot with the owls, you better soar with the eagles. So my first CEO that I worked for, he was a Wall Street banker, but it was kind of the work hard, play hard. He's like, look, if you really enjoy the people that you work with and what you're trying to do and build, have fun. That's a good way to build. And it's not the only way to build team cultures. How we did it, back in the day. But his career advice was, I don't care what you do, but if you want to hoot with the owls, you better be ready to soar with the eagles in the morning because we got work to do and we got a vision to go pursue. And that's all I tell that to my kids too, because they think they're cool because they stayed up till 1 o'clock. I'm like, hey, if you're gonna hoot with the owls, you better be soaring with the eagles. You got practice and games in the morning.
And don't be upset at me when I'm up at 6 waking you up. Don't be upset at me, right?
That's right.
Well, what's one habit or practice that consistently makes you more effective?
I am still a list notebook guy. And as much as technology and boy, I couldn't live without my Outlook calendars and all that stuff. But I am still a guy that I have this and it is riddled with all kinds of stuff in it. But that's how I organize my thoughts, so to speak. And I've always done that kind of I know what I got. At the end of the day, I look at it and I'm like, okay, these are the things that are what's my critical path tomorrow, and or and some of those A, B, and C priorities, but these are the ones I got to jump on right away. Always done that, and it just helps you. There's lots of stuff, especially when you're dealing with many employees, many projects, many priorities, many personalities. That if you can, at least with your thoughts towards the end of the day, organize them in a quick list, it's always helped me to get my things done.
I hear you identifying what I call MIT, and that's the most important tasks. But I will jokingly say you're an analog guy.
Well, it's fair.
That's
I'll
fine.
take
I
it.
was an analog guy for a while, and then I finally got a Mac, I don't know, a decade ago. And then I gave up my Android phone for the iPhone, and then I became a digital guy. But I can't live without the structure of the calendar, so I completely get what you say. All right, this one's short but telling. Are you a early bird or a night owl?
I'm a night owl.
Really? Even with kids?
Yep.
Oh,
I have my brain tends to get more creative in the evening. I do get up early. There's no question. I mean, I get if I don't, I know you like to work out. I'm the same. I like to get up and get a workout in, and it's quiet, and I can get some things done in the morning. But my preference always have been I just am a little bit more. My brain works a little bit more creatively in the evening than it does in the morning. I just have always been that way.
see, we've just the extra floor is just supposed to be a little fun, a little telling about you, the person. So the last one's not about you. It's just how would you like listeners to contact you if what's the best way? We'll put all this in the show notes, but just say it for those that are only listening and not looking at the notes.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the best way is just to email me. Chad.stafford at occmgmt.com.
And that website does show their portfolio, and you can go see anything you want about Esperia on there. It's a pretty awesome place. So, Chad, thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the transparency, and thank you for the listeners. Be sure to follow, like, subscribe, suggest, forward it to somebody you know, and we'll see you on the next episode of Peak Property Performance.